Right to go. Welcome everybody to the ordinary meeting of Council, Thursday the 19th of August 2021. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay respect to elders past and present. Councillors, apologies and leave of absence. We have Theo.
Yes, we have a leave of absence for Councillor Benjamin and Councillor Larter.
Thank you. Someone would like to move those? Councillor Wright, Councillor Isselman, all in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Thank you, councillors. There's no public forum. Declarations of pecuniary interest. Before we start with other councillors, I have one, 11.3. Snowy Valleys Council Community Grants. I have a pecuniary interest and I'll leave the screen and move to a breakout room where I can't see what's going on, and I'll hand over to Councillor Ham, who will conduct that while we discuss that section. And that's because I am a board member of Adelong Community Enterprises, which is an applicant for one of the grants. Any other pecuniary interests, councillors? No. Thank you. Confirmations of minutes of the previous meeting. Mover, Councillor Isselman, Councillor Pritchard. Anything arising from those? No. Put the motion to accept those minutes. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Just excuse me while I move on to the mayoral minute. We've got two mayoral minutes. As I move there.
Which item would you like to deal with first, Mr. Mayor? The one in open session or the one in
open session, special activation precinct. So I'll move that. Do we have any comment on that? No comment. I'll put the motion. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Ham.
Yeah, I really think it is something we should comment on, and I think Councillor Pritchard probably would want to as well. But just how important it is for people to be aware of the Snowy Mountain Special Activation Precinct, which is happening in Narragansett land, which is of course where the people from Tumbarumba come from. And there is a lot of amazing stuff happening up around Jindabyne for the Special Activation Precinct, but there will be a flow on into the Snowy Valleys Council, and it does affect our council, and I'm delighted to say that our council is putting in a submission for this. However, it certainly does affect people. It would be good if the Aboriginal people can put in something as well, because these are their lands that are going to be affected.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Still on mute, Councillor Pritchard.
I'm trying to unmute you. Yeah, this is an enormous proposal. The reasoning behind it is they want to turn the ski field area into an all year round playground. They want to put 4,000 beds in the play field in the area. They want to put 3 helipads, ski, mountain bike trails. It's going to change things just gigantically. And you may remember that the Snowfields people did a deal with Vail in Colorado about this joining up. They've got some partnership, or they did have, and people could buy a ticket for one country, and which would be do them right for the whole year across either Colorado or Perisher. I don't know that it still stands, but the amount of international travel that we'll get through this area in the off skiing season will be enormous. It'll be a throw on whether we like it or not. It won't affect us in Tumut very much, I don't think, except that the people who want to go there from the Riverina, they'll all be passing through here. But the Narragansett people are original owners of the land, and it's terribly important that they be respected, and there may be job opportunities for them there. But I'd advise anyone to read this proposal. John Ballararo is the guy behind it all, and I won't carry on anymore, but it's going to have an enormous impact.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Any other councillors? Put the motion, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, that brings us to the confidential mayoral minute. We'll move into confidential. For that, do we have a mover to move that way?
Correct. Yep.
Councillor Ham, Councillor Cross, all in favour? It's unanimous. We'll move into confidential.
Just start up that breakout room.
Did I hit the wrong button?
Yeah, do you want me to put you back in the breakout room, Kate?
Thank you. I left the meeting.
Sorry, just having trouble getting you out to that.
That's all right. I thought I hit the right, but I didn't say leave the meeting. I just said leave the breakout room. Was that you?
I'm not sure. So it is being live streamed though, so everything you say at the moment is live streaming.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Kate, I can't get you back into that.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
We've lost Jeff.
I've got him. All present and accounted for? Thank you. Thank you, councillors. I'll just move further on. So I report that mayoral minute was passed unanimously by those in the room. Councillors, that takes us to 10.1, Australian Local Government Association. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Cross. Councillor Smith, you got your hand up? Yes, he has. Any comment on that, Councillor Cross? Mute, Councillor Cross.
I was at that conference and it was really, really good to be there in person. We covered a lot of issues. I think a couple of things that came out of it that were of interest to me was the fact that city dwellers are interested in moving to the country, and that the jobs in the country are now perceived as not just being rural kinds of jobs. So I thought that, and that there has been a toolkit developed for councils to be able to use to help launch their region. I think the other thing that was of interest to us in particular is that the barriers for doctors coming to our region, that they don't want to set up as businesses, they actually want to be part of a hospital. So the other things of interest were the exhibitions that we saw and all the different things that we can tap into. So all in all, I don't know if Councillor Smith, you've got anything else to add, but I found it a really valuable experience.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Councillor Smith.
Yes, certainly. I would like to add the fact that the conference was really, really well organised and well run. A number of salient points. One of them was that we were addressed by a number of the current politicians, and I found it quite a significant moment when the current Deputy Prime Minister spoke to us on his way to a parliamentary meeting where he knew that he was going to be voted out of his position, and yet he had the courage and strength to come and talk to us from the heart and encourage us in our position in as local government. I found that very touching and moving and courageous, in fact. And a number of other politicians addressed us, and I find those sort of events or those parts of the event very helpful and useful. One of the other things that I noted was I went out to the breakout session about waste towards zero waste. And it was very heartening to note that with our FOGO program that we're well ahead of the pack, and that it's going to become law by 2031, I think it is, that all councils need to be in that position. So it's great to know that Snowy Valleys Council is ahead of the game in this respect, and that in many respects we can hold our heads up high, and members of this council well into the future can hold their heads up high as being part of a very progressive and positive council, and that there are not many other councils where the camaraderie, if you like, but the positive culture of this council are replicated. So for me, it was a very positive experience.
Thank you, Councillor Smith, and certainly we were very lucky to be able to get the conference up and over before the COVID came back again to bite us. So yeah, very good. Thank you very much, councillors. Do it. Anyone any further? I'll put the motion. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. And just for the minute taker, I believe it was Councillor Ham and Councillor Wright that moved out of confidential. Yes. Thank you. Okay, moving on, councillors, to 10.2, section 218CC, Local Government Act proposals for demerging. Just get there. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ham, seconder. Councillor Cross. Here we are. Okay. Councillor Ham.
Yeah, I'd just like to acknowledge that the report was delivered. As someone who lives in the southern area of the council, it's been really quite distressing to see the sadness in the community. I think everyone was prepared for a yes or no, but to get the report is flawed is really not good enough. And a lot of people, including everyone here on the screen and myself, put in a lot of work for the Boundaries Commission and presented a really, what we thought out and really thought about our arguments, as did so many other people in the community. And it just really leaves a bad taste in your mouth when it's just like, oh, sorry, it was flawed. And, the work that all the people in the southern region and in the northern region put in, I want to acknowledge that and just say I do empathise with what you've been through with that, be it for or against. So in saying this, I'm very grateful that this report's come together. And I am also acknowledging what's happening in Gundagai Tumut, just to jump in and say, right, we're going with 218cc section 218 section of the Local Government Act proposal and ask immediately for de-amalgamation. Now that's been tried and just got a letter saying, yeah, not happening. I'm pleased that we're trying to work out, as we do in our council, we might be a bit risk adverse, but if we do it well and we do it once, to find out exactly what the term of reference are, what the guidelines are, to make sure that there is a Boundaries Commission in place. There was one word I wouldn't mind on adding in 3C, on the finalisation of the terms of reference, the minister immediately appoint independent commissioners that have the expertise to fill the role expected under the terms of reference. And the reason I'd like independent added there is because I think that was part of the reason why it was flawed in the beginning, because it was deemed that some of those, some commissioners were flawed. So, yes, once again, thank you for letting this motion go forward.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. Councillor Wright had his hand up for initially, and then we'll come to Councillor Isselman. Still on mute, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm with Councillor Ham. I'm so bitterly disappointed that the government didn't make a decision either for or against. As we all know, we didn't stand. We stood for council as a combined council. We didn't necessarily agree with it to start off with, but we stood as a combined council. So all we've done is tried to do our best for all our communities. But the people who want to de-amalgamate have done a great job, worked really hard. You've got to really applaud them in lots of ways. Shame they attacked some of us, but anyway, that's what happens. But yeah, I'm really disappointed the government didn't have the balls to make a decision. They just left it hanging.
Thank you, Councillor Wright, for your very forthright views. Councillor Isselman.
If I may, please, Mr. Mayor, I would like to have the actual recommendation on the screen because Councillor Wright is unable to see that, and I wish to make some changes to the recommendation. I think that the Minister was fairly straightforward in her deliberation. This is what I want. This is where we go, and I'll have some boundary commission evaluations and guidelines set. So I disagree with you for once, Bruce, but still, if I could just get recommendations on the screen, if that's a possibility.
Councillor Esselman, would you like to move into committee for this, and then?
Can I move to committee, please, sir?
And Councillor Cross is seconding that. And do we have all in agreement? Yes, we do. Okay, so CEO, can you put that on the screen, and we might just make some changes, and then if the mover and the seconder are happy with that, we'll move on.
Can do, Mr. Mayor.
For the record, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to comment that I have a note on my screen that my internet
Looks like we've lost Councillor Smith.
He's back in there, but I think his internet is unstable, so we'll just watch that as we go.
Might need to put another shilling in the meter.
Councillors, I've put up there's the change that Councillor Ham suggested there with that independent word, and the changes that Councillor Isselman has discussed previously.
If I may, please, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Isselman.
Yes, I've asked for the needs to be renumbered as I look at it as well. It needs to be 4 and 5. I've asked 4 and 5 to be merged into a very, very simple and straightforward request the Officer of Local Government finalise the guidelines. I don't think we need any more than that. It's important that as councillors right across New South Wales, we understand what local government guidelines will be in relation to this matter.
Thank you, Councillor Isselman. I think that says much the same as what has been underlined.
That's correct.
So, Mr. Mayor, after you finished your discussion, you could ask the mover and seconder of the report, which was Ham and Cross, whether they're happy with those changes. And if not, we could move to an amendment motion.
Okay. Councillor Ham?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that.
Councillor Cross?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Okay. All right. Okay, we might move. Councillor Isselman?
You're
right.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you can see my hand up.
No, I can't.
Okay.
But I can hear you.
Right. If I may please just ask for some more clarification on point C, that on finalisation of the terms of reference, the Minister immediately appoint independent commissioners. I understand that might mean, or that the intention of that might mean that it should not be people from local government background. If that is the case, I believe that should be pointed out specifically.
Okay, is that what we want, councillors? So,
can I ask the question, please, Mr. Mayor? What did Councillor Ham mean by independent?
Independent, and I actually have been asked this question before, and I maybe flippantly said it'd be good if it was someone from England, someone completely away from the local government system here, because it would be very hard not to have a bias. But whether or not that's possible, I don't know. Whether or not it's possible to have someone from another state, someone from a big council within the, they did have someone from a big council in the city. There has been discussions that one of the commissioners actually works for the Minister of Local Government. And if that was the case, I feel that's almost a conflict of interest. So I feel uncomfortable about that. I feel uncomfortable about having a commissioner that is in a similar size and space as we are, because to me, they're probably always going to support what they're used to. So I just want it to be balanced.
I'm not sure. Who's to say that if you want an independent one, that it shouldn't be a councillor?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just on your point there, I wouldn't count any of the current members of the Boundaries Commission as independent. As the Mayor stated, they're councillors, they're experts in the Office of Local Government. However, you could say that the chair is independent because he doesn't have a local government background. He does have an audit officer background. If I would think you would want to consider that word independent and what that truly might mean. It may mean that you get a group, a panel that has actually no local government experience whatsoever if you were to use that word independent.
Given that the administrator was independent, I think I would be happier to leave that word out and go with the rest of what we've got. Councillor Pritchard, you're on mute still.
Yes, I think the more we debate it, the more we keep it alive. I just ignore the whole bloody thing and just press on following that and do our job.
So Councillor Ham, I think we can get this over the line if we remove the word independent.
Yeah, thank you for considering.
That's okay. No, that's what debate's all about.
Would you like me to reshare the screen again and so that you can see clearly what you've got there?
I'm pretty clear on it, but yes, happy for you to do that. And do we want to move out of? Do you want to move out or not, or do you want to look at it first?
No, move out. Let's get on with it.
Okay, let's put it to the vote. Let's see who wants to move out. So we've got a mover, Councillor Distelman and Councillor Wright. All in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, we're out.
Would you like me to share that now, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, let's have one last look at it. Councillors, you happy with that? Comfortable?
Yep.
Put the motion. All in favour?
I'll just take that share off so that you can count the vote, Mr. Mayor.
I'm just waiting on Councillor Pritchard.
I'm not going to vote on it.
Okay, thank you. So it's an abstention. So we've got 6-4, and Councillor Pritchard is an abstention, which is a no. Okay, moving on. Councillors, that brings me to brings us to 10.3.
10.3, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. It's on page 28 electronically, page 25 on a paper copy.
Okay, 10.3. Yep. Okay. Operational plan for fourth quarter report. Mover. Councillor Cross. Councillor Ham, thank you. Councillor Cross.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to congratulate the team on putting this together. 114 out of 119 actions and initiatives have been delivered, which I think is against what we've been through is a marvellous job. But one thing I wanted to point out was that the project team sent through a breakdown of those projects and by towns and by how much money was spent in each town, as well as the costs per head of population, which gives us a really good picture of how much money went into different communities. Now, my reason for bringing this up is because the Save Tumbarumba Shire is always complaining about the fact that no money gets spent in Tumbarumba, the projects don't happen there and that they all happen in Tumut. So I think it would be really good for us to be able to publish those breakdowns of costs for the communities so that they could actually see what was spent in their areas, so that they can see that this Save Tumbarumba Shire really are using emotional tactics to prove a point.
I thank you, Councillor Cross. I think worse than that is they're using data that's not correct.
Yes.
Or they're making up data. So if we give them the correct data, maybe they can get their comments correct in the paper, and that would make me a lot happier.
Yes.
And it would also inform the community.
Exactly. And I did have some questions about the operational plan, if nobody else has anything else to say. Sorry, Councillor Ham.
I was wondering whether we should go into committee about the operational plan.
Yep.
So you're moving that way, Councillor Ham? Seconder? Councillor Risselman, all in favour? Are you voting against that too, Councillor Pritchard, or are you voting for going into the committee?
I'm not voting on it. I think it's just keeping things alive, which should be allowed to basically with on the vine.
Okay, so we've got 6-4 and 1 abstention. We're into committee now, so who's speaking first? Councillor Ham.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, okay. There's just 2 things I want to talk about. Is 1.9.2, the development of new draft LEP. Now, we've got the reason there, the Department of Planning and Environment advised not to proceed until rural land use study is complete. I know there were people just hanging out to have this LEP completed. So would it be possible to have someone tell me exactly when this rural land use study is complete and why the necessity to wait for it? And if we are waiting for it, like, is this going to be done this year, this financial year, or next year? Just a timeline on it.
I'll ask Mr. Holton.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't actually undo. I can't start my. Oh, here we go.
Oh,
Thank you.
It seemed very dark in Batlow there.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the rural land use study, we have a first draft is complete. This document looks at the available rural land and makes recommendations around what zoning should be applied to those areas and lot size, and basically making recommendations to bring, I guess, the 2 municipalities in alignment in terms of the various rural zones and what you can and can't do there. So this is an important document that will feed into the development of the LEP. And so to get the best LEP, we could have gone down the track of just harmonising the LEPs that we had, but the planning department felt that it would be a great opportunity to do a thorough job on developing our LEP, and actually addressing a range of issues, including, rural land use, residential housing availability, and a range of other concerns. So we were just waiting on some finalised mapping to come through, and we should have the rural land use study in our hands in the next month or so. And once we have that, we can commence the LEP, a thorough, robust review and then development of a new LEP.
So that rural land use study, will that be current? Oh, sorry, if this is all right, Mr. Mayor, through you. Will that be current given this COVID move from the city to the bush and things like that? It will be very up to date?
It'll be absolutely contemporary with the with what demand there is and what the various uses could be. So yes, you're right in that there is, I guess, a growing demand for larger residential lots in rural areas. so large lot residential zones, and they are considered within the context of the rural land use study. But it also acknowledges that the mix of agricultural activity has changed within the municipality, and there are a far more diverse range of agricultural and horticultural enterprises out there, and they all have different needs for land. It's not all about growing cattle or sheep or things like that. So the LEPs that we were working with were reasonably old and needed to be updated to better reflect what the contemporary land use was in the rural area. And the new LEP will also address some issues around the residential zones residential and industrial zones that we see.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could just also ask, I hope they really highlight the bushfire risk within our area, and and particularly with the planting of pines and having buffer zones and things like that. I would really like to see that in there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's a thorough approach to the LEP will pick up on any contemporary issues and any things that are being sent down the line from the state government, who are doing a great deal of work from the planning department on bushfire and bushfire-prone areas. So the LEP will pick up on all of that.
So, Mr. Holton, would it be possible to have a rush draft in front of us for the next workshop in September workshop?
I'll take that one on notice, and I can bring. I can't guarantee that it'll be 100% complete at that point in time, but we can bring what we have. There's some interesting facts have emerged through the process.
Okay, thank you. We'll look forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Holton. Thank you, Councillor Ham. Okay, we're still in committee. Councillor Cross.
Yes, a few little questions I wanted to ask about the operational plan. 1.9.3, we're talking about the online portal that the state government has now put through for development applications, and I just wondered how that was working. If I could ask the director if it was making it easier for staff and for clients to use, or if it hasn't even been used yet.
Okay,
Well,
Mr. Holton, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The portal, the planning portal, is currently in use. It was mandated to be used from the 1st of July, and so it's currently in use in this council. We had been using the portal for quite some time, but all DAs must be lodged on the planning portal right now. So it is being used extensively. We have been granted some money from the state government to facilitate the use. We've used that funding to get other software that will enable us to do DA assessment electronically. We also used it to set up little kiosks in the council offices to assist people who need to access the portal when they come in to lodge their DA. Most professional planning consultants are familiar with how to use the portal, but it's a little bit different when people are determined to lodge the DA on behalf of themselves. Currently, because we haven't quite got the ability to do the assessments online because of some technical issues that have arisen between our enterprise systems and the portal itself, it does create some administrative burden in that all the DAs must be printed out, assessed in hard copy, then scanned back in onto the portal. And that does create busy work that when we are able to do the DA assessment electronically, it will improve things. However, I will say that our planning team are still managing to keep the median days that it takes to get a DA assessed at around 21 to 22 days, which is very, very good.
The next question I wanted to ask was 3.1.3, to get an idea of whether we are making any savings having replaced all the streetlights with LEDs. If I could ask the director to respond, please, Mr. Mayor.
Executive Director, of course.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Cross. Yes, the LED change-out program has been completed and we are realising savings from that immediately in respect to that the energy costs are significantly less. Those savings are helping to fund the loan that we took out for the capital cost to change out the LEDs. And we expect that will run for about 7 years to fully recoup that cost, and then we'll be in the black in respect to the savings.
That's wonderful news. Thank you. And if I may too, while you're there, could I just talk about FOGO and say, everybody I see says it's absolutely wonderful. They just love it. It's just fantastic. But is it having an impact, a negative impact on operations for staff?
It's taking, I suppose, through the implementation phase, staff are making a massive effort and very much stepping out of business as usual to make sure that it is successful, and really appreciate your feedback on that. It will settle down into business as usual over time. From an operational perspective, the pickup of the additional bin, we purchased another truck as part of the project, and also employed another driver for the vehicle. So from that perspective, we're covered. And as the rollout is finalised and things settle down a bit, staff will be able to get back to normal, back to business as usual. Fantastic effort by all staff involved, cross-organisational approach, with our customer service team, our rates team, our comms team and our waste team, all working very well together to make sure this was a success.
And what actually happens to the green waste that you pick up?
Yeah, so at the moment, obviously the green waste is separated through the FOGO bin. It goes to the transfer station, gets sorted quickly to make sure there's no issues with contamination, and that's been a fantastic result as well. We found contamination to be less than 1%, which is amazing, and really need to thank the community for that. It then gets loaded into a bulky waste truck and gets transported to a licensed processing facility, recognising that we're still in the planning phase of getting our own facility set up here in Snowy Valleys. In the interim, it's going to another facility being processed as compost, which is fantastic in that material is already now being kept out of landfill.
Do we know what proportion is being kept out of landfill yet, or is it early days?
It's still early days, in that we're still doing, we only just started the actual pickup this month. The latest numbers I've got, about 60 tonnes, from what I understand, has been diverted away from landfill already. When fully implemented, we're hoping to capture as much as 30 to 40% of the waste stream.
That's brilliant.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Cross. Councillor Smith, you had a question?
Not a question, but a comment. I'd like to comment that I think a very important part of the success of the FOGO, or the rollout of the FOGO program at this point in time, is due to the presentation to all the schools in the area. I've had comments from members of the public that it was probably the highlight of the school year for some of the children who took part in that presentation, and certainly having been present at those presentations in some of the schools myself, to see the enthusiasm and the excitement of the kids in seeing that presentation was very worthwhile, and they've clearly gone home and told their parents all about FOGO and what to do and what not to do. And it, I think, has been a strong part of the success of the rollout of that program.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Pritchard, you had something?
Just if I could address it to Paul Horton, please, just about the LEP. Could you tell us if there's enough land available for building at the moment? Are we short of, are the builders short of land? When,
Mr. Holton?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, look, the current land that is zoned for housing, there is many years' supply of land that's currently zoned for housing, both like right across the municipality in Tumut, Batlow, Adelong, and Tumbarumba. The issue is that the owners of large portions of that land at this stage aren't prepared to go to the expense or go through the process of developing it as such. This may well be partly addressed through the development of a new LEP, because currently in Tumut, for example, most of the land that's zoned residential is zoned R3, which is medium density residential. Now that sends a message to the market that council wants medium density housing development. And in reality, the market isn't there for medium density. The market is probably more about general residential, larger lots with standalone 3 and 4 bedroom houses on it. Now, you don't have to develop medium density on medium density zoning, but the message that our LEP is sending is that that's what we're looking for. And that's one of the issues that we hope to address through the development of a new LEP. Send the right messages to the development community and to the market that the kind of residential land that people are looking for is the kind that we are going to zone.
Thank you. Councillor Wright, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Paul just said then about community land. You know, people who've own the land and don't want to develop it. But of course, most of that land's pretty good agricultural land, and with the prices of cattle and sheep so high, there's probably no need to subdivide. They want to keep it for what it is. Only a comment.
Thank you. Anything further, councillors? Can we move? Councillor Smith.
Yes, can I please comment on 4.4, customer service in general? There are a number of points there. It's one of the issues that was discussed in this council from the very beginning, because there had been a measure of dissatisfaction in the community with the responses that council staff had been giving and so on. So there has been quite a strong interest from council, and I'm also very pleased to say that there has been a strong response from council staff in the way that they've been responding. So I wanted to just draw attention to the fact that the community satisfaction survey was somewhat critical of this aspect. But I wanted to also make the point that in our operational plan, this has been well and truly covered, and that we are developing systems, and that they are well underway to actually produce a much more efficient system of handling customer requests. So could we perhaps have a comment from the director of that department to give us some more specifics about that?
I'll go straight to the CEO for this one.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Smith. Yes, we've had an improvement program going over a number of years. We haven't had a customer relation management system that has applied across the whole local government area at the start, but we now do have. That system is aligned with our existing system, and we have managed to employ a qualified staff member to assist in developing that system. We are reporting through that system now, and the results are quite good, demonstrating that we're meeting within the service standard for the majority of our requests. We are now, as you lodge a request, you automatically get a number allocated that you can make contact with the customer service section and ask about your particular request. And that system has further development to go at this point. We do have quite a lot of work up front to clear up the NARS, the name and address register, and that work is now substantially complete now. So significant progress and good reporting and getting good results for that now, but still got a little while to go.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ham.
I'd just like to make a comment on 5.5.2 and 5.5.1, being the making note of the rail trail and just the quarterly maintenance program completed. I just have to compliment, well, the rail trail group around Tumbarumba that do so much work on it, but having made a comment to council about some of the drainage near the bridges, near the culverts, just how quickly that was moved on, and my thanks for that. And I'm delighted to see that we've got the Regional Trails Master Plan is about to commence, and that will give an overview of all rail trails. I have a particular passion to have the rail trail get down to Humula, going through Hume Shire and Wagga City. So I'm just hoping that that gets added into the plan, being that it's a part of it, most of it is outside of our council area. And also very excited about what the Tumbarumba mountain bike group are planning with Mount Tumbarumba behind Tumbarumba. So just hoping that those two things get included in that master plan.
Certainly, thank you. And given that it's a regional master plan, I'm sure that that will be included in it.
Tremendous.
CEO, you had something to say?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, just to Councillor Ham, the Regional Trails Master Plan has been funded now. We're hoping to appoint a consultant later this year with that funding package we got from the state, and that work will commence with the community early next year. It is about regional trails, so it is inside and outside our local government area, and it's about those linkages, and it's about all the different sorts of trails, be they mountain biking, road biking, horse riding, all those different components, and we will encourage the community to become involved in that process and provide that information in there, because that will actually set the agenda going forward. And the state government departments have already indicated to us that they will look to that document to give them guidance on the priorities for funding into the future.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Councillor Ham. Can we move out of committee now? Councillor Wright, Councillor Ham, all in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. So we've got any further comments on those recommendations? I'll put the recommendations. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Interim financial performance as on 30 June 2021. This is very early. Figures, yep. Councillor Ham. Councillor Isselman. Councillor Ham.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I'd be able to talk to the CFO about a couple of things that I need some explanation about. The first one, you know, in that second paragraph, saying that the result is a $11 million surplus or 907K loss after capital items. I get that and understand that, but it's only estimated, and we're not to take that figure as gospel at this stage, I presume. And then maybe talk to that first and then I'll ask my second question.
Okie dokie, thanks. CFO.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is an interim report. While when we had to submit this report, we were still finalising our asset register, and we have a number of grants yet to reconcile, and also a number of operational expenditure to reconcile. So yes, it is definitely a very interim report.
Okay, so this is probably through you, Mr. Mayor. This is probably an interim question as well. I just look at what the year to date is compared to our original budget, and I know it's gone through QBR since, but like we're right off, like 70 million to 42, and it just concerns me that we are not, for people that are going out and talking about SRVs and things like that, we need to, should we not be a lot closer with our budget so we actually do know what monies we've got? Or has this been distorted because of grants coming in post bushfire?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ham. Yes, it has been distorted, not just by bushfire funding, by a large amount of projects that were funded during the financial year. We have adjusted at each QBR a little further, but in overall, I must say, even the private works was much higher than we anticipated. The budget is a plan. Plans change during the year, and that's why we have QBRs. It's still early days, especially as we haven't finalised the disaster recovery funding stream yet, which was a large expenditure and obviously also a large income. But there is many projects, the entire program had to be rejigged during the year because of all the funding we received. So, and through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask one, I mean, it works for us, but to have other incomes being $14 million, but budgeted at 900, and it's not part of the grants, what would that $14 million be? Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is disaster recovery funding, which is not considered to be a grant, but a refund for expenditure incurred.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cross. You on mute, Councillor Cross.
Just a question for the CFO as well. If we look at the expenses in the pie chart, the employee costs are still really, really high. And I was just wondering what the explanation was for that, please.
CFO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the employee cost is one of the items that were not reconciled at report writing date, but partially due to the extreme amount of funding that we received and the many programs we had to deliver in addition to what was originally budgeted.
Thank you. Makes sense.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may also add, by comparison to other councils, we run quite a lot of day labour works. So compared to, say, the City Council, we run a lot of services ourselves, like our waste collection trucks. We run a lot of services on behalf of the state or federal government, like the multi-service outlet, community transport, and they all take employees. So our employee numbers are quite high, but that's not unusual for a rural regional council because we tend to do that work ourselves, which means that that money stays in our community. So if we were to employ a contractor to do our waste collection, for instance, that money will go to wherever that contractor is based. So it is good to see that that money does return and recycle in our community.
That really is a lovely example of the circular economy.
Thank you. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Ham.
Sorry, just a very quick update from the Director of Infrastructure about the Telbingo boat ramp pontoon and how's that developing along?
Mr. Korsh.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ham. Yeah, so they're on site working as we speak, preparing for the first round of concrete pours, hopefully tomorrow, if the weather's kind to us, which will be fantastic. The pontoons that will form part of the boat ramp, delineating the boat area from the swimming area. They've been largely manufactured, so they're ready to go as well. They've been built in a factory. And they'll get installed on site once we can get the right water levels, which is in the hands of Snowy Hydro. Going well, given the impediments that we've had to deal with, being wet weather, high water levels.
Thank you.
But in time for summer, it's great. Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, councillors. I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. 10.5, Statement of Investments. Mover. Thank you, Councillor Ham. Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Ham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've had a look at these. I'm quite happy with what I see.
Put the motion. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.6, Review approval of 2020-2021 revotes. Councillor Smith. Councillor Cross. Councillor Smith, anything to comment?
Mr. Mayor, could we ask the Chief Financial Officer to comment on the distinguishing features between carryovers and revotes, just so that, we can have that understanding.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. CFO.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. A revote is a project that has not been started and that we're asking council to add to the current budget, as in increasing the budget, whereas a carry forward is a project that has started and we are contractually obligated to deliver. While it gets added to the budget, it doesn't need to be approved by council because we have a contractual obligation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further? Put the motion. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, CFO. Tumbarumba Men's Shed. Mover. Councillor Ham. Councillor Wright. Councillor Ham.
I'm happy for Councillor Wright to talk on this. He was involved in the beginning, if he'd like to.
I think it's a great project. I think I'm so for it, and great to see the men's shed really, expanding it. It's such a great facility, and so many people going along to it and being involved. I think I really commend everybody to support this. And it's a good area where it's going. It's a nice area. It's plenty of room, plenty of parking, out of the road of everybody, and it's near the bench at the rail trail, where they've been doing a heck of a lot of work on the rail trail too. So, just a great idea, great initiative by the men's shed, and I think it's great that we can support it.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Cross.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, a question about how easy will it be for us or for the land to be moved over to the men's shed for where they're proposing their new shed? Because it's Crown lands, and I'm not quite sure how easy it will be and how quick it will be.
Sorry, I just lost contact then for a moment, but I think that's a question for Executive Director Korsch.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor Cross. Great question. I don't have an answer for it at this stage, in that we're finding that dealing with the Crown can take some time and can be rather complex. In saying that, I don't see, if the Tumbarumba Men's Shed were successful in securing funding for their new facility, there'd be no reason why they couldn't start work on that facility and get going. And, at the same time, we work through the land arrangements with the Crown. So although that could take some time and require some toing and froing, I don't see that as being a delay to the men's shed getting on with it if they get their funding.
That's really good news. And what will happen to the old shed if when they build their new shed?
Just as described there in recommendation 6 of the report, we'll be looking at making that shed available to other community groups that might be able to benefit from it. And we've already had one approach for that, and we'll do that through an expressions of interest process and assess that on benefit. I suppose if there was no ongoing need for the shed, we'll then look at its disposal, but we'd much prefer to make it available to the community first if we can do that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cross. Anything further? Councillor Wright, still on mute. Still on mute.
I'd just like to add that I think the men's shed building, existing one, belongs to the Tumbarumba community. I think the community built it themselves. It wasn't a council asset. It's only on Crown land that it became council asset, really. So really be great to see somebody in our community use it.
Thank you. Okay, put the motion all in favour. That's unanimous. Thank you. Draft Snowy Valleys Council Child Safe Organisation Policy and Child Safe Framework for Public Exhibition. Mover, Councillor Ham, Councillor Cross. Comment?
I think this is something that, it's about children in all aspects of Snowy Valleys Council. The only thing that worries me is in the recommendation, point 4, adopt the draft Snowy Valleys Council Safe Organisation Policy if no one's commented. I can see why that's there, but I'm just wondering, it's just not something that I think is really good practice to get into, because sometimes you get the policy back again and you reread it. It's just unusual. It's not the normal way that a policy is presented. Normally it does come back to council for final tick off.
There you go.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Ham, this is the way that we tend to do things. It just creates a smoother administrative process. As you know, all of our policies can be reviewed at any time. If it's just an administrative minor changes, then they can just happen automatically. If they're larger changes, then there's a bigger process around that. But this allows this to go through fairly smoothly. Anyone has any comments, we take them on board. If they're just administrative, it goes through and we adopt it. Otherwise, if there's any changes suggested, we come back to council. But as councillors, you can ask for that report to come back at any time. And as staff, if we believe that there's been a change in the industry, that we need to change some of the information in the report, then we'll bring back a suggestion for a change. So it is a standard process, but it's aimed to decrease the administration and the more time that staff can spend doing the work on the ground rather than just doing a reporting process.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Anything else? Councillor Cross.
Yes, I appreciate that this whole stuff, all of this is mandated by the state government, but I'm just worried that it's going to put a huge impost on the staff and what kind of training they will need to undertake. Can we have some reassurance about what the implications of this are for our childcare centres, please?
Mr. Holt.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Like all of these things, it does come at a cost, and these things are mandated. And whilst the cost on each one of these things, so we have the disability inclusion and access legislation, we also have the need to develop and put in place a reconciliation action plan, and this one, and they are all really important things for all organisations, not just councils, to adopt and put forward. It does create extra administrative burden, and it does create the need to provide training and working with children's checks and things like that. And cumulatively, the cost of compliance with state legislation and federal legislation is quite significant, and that a fair amount of local government's resources are generally put to that purpose.
Councillor Wright.
I'm just going to make a comment on that. It's another case of government's cost shifting to local government, isn't it?
Yeah.
Take that as a comment. Anything further? Councillor Ham.
However, we are discussing young children here, and the more safety we can put in to keep our children safe, the better. And a lot of these costs, most of what's in that policy has been in practice and has been part of the what parents pay when they pay for childcare throughout the whole of the country in order to keep children safe, and that's what we should do.
Mr. Mayor, may I also note that this isn't just about the children's services, this is about the whole organisation. So there's a responsibility in these documents for every employee and every councillor and every volunteer in absolutely every activity we do to make sure that we are protecting the safety of children in our community.
Thank you. Okay, let's put the motion. Oh, it's Councillor Cross before we do.
So
last word.
Having said that, Matt, does that mean then that we have to undertake some kind of training as well?
Through the Mayor, that's correct, Councillor Cross. So the staff in Mr Holton's area are currently evaluating how we run those programs, but that will be one of the actions that fall out once the policy is adopted and the framework's adopted, about how we implement all those changes and make sure that all of our staff are aware and aware what they can do and how they do referrals and any issues of concern that they might have, what their duty of care is around that.
Does that then mean that we all have to have a working with children check and a police check?
Not necessarily, no. Mr Holton, would you, sorry, Mr Mayor, if Mr Holton would like to add to that, if you're okay.
Through the Mayor. Yes, some councils have elected, some councils in Australia have elected to ensure that every person involved with the council, from the councillors through to all frontline staff, undertake working with children checks. And this is the case in a couple of councils that I've worked in other locations.
And is that at a cost of $80 per person?
It is, through you, Mayor, or in response to your question, in some cases that cost is met by the individual as they come into the organisation. So, for example, if I were to start working in another council and I would be required to have a working with children check, I would have to have that before I started work. So I would bear the cost of that. But in general, where the legislation or the policy has changed to require a working with children check, it would be borne by the individuals who are already working there.
Thank you. So that'd be close to $20,000 for our organisation, if that was the case. Okay, moving on. Let's put the motion. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, this brings us to 11.3, and as I mentioned earlier, I have with 2B, I have a pecuniary interest. So can we address everything in that recommendation and leave 2B out? Or not to be, maybe? Yes?
Yeah.
So we'll put. So I'm asking for somebody to move the recommendation excluding 2B. So I've got Councillor Cross and Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Cross. I'm still on mute, Councillor Cross.
Congratulations to all those people who put in their applications. It's great that we can still offer these community grants, because I know that not all councils do. One of my questions is around the unsuccessful applicants and whether they'll be sent an individual letter outlining why they were unsuccessful and suggestions as to how or who they could approach to get their grants over the line, because some of the grants that we weren't able to fund were really, really good, and it would be great to see them be successful in another way, in another forum.
Okay, Ms Jones.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you, Councillor Cross. Just in response to the first part of your question, all applicants, whether they're successful or unsuccessful, will be contacted individually, and the offer will be made to discuss the content of unsuccessful applications as to the reasons why they were deemed ineligible or didn't make the grade. In relation to support generally for grant applications, that's available all the time through a variety of teams inside of SVC. First point of call is usually the place activation team. And secondly, the program manager who deals with these grants specifically would also be able to provide that level of support. But as always, the best direction is to the info at or the 1300 number.
Sorry, councillors, that was a technical glitch.
It's all right. When's your next review? Now, moving on. Where were we up?
Just
So,
Yeah. Keep your
sorry.
hand up. Yeah, that's all right. As long as, yeah, that's why you're not the President of the United States. Now, moving on. Where are we up to?
I was hearing about the grants.
Oh, yes, Ms Jones.
Where did we get cut off, Councillor Cross?
You were talking about that there was always support available for
grants.
people.
For the viewers at home, they would have got this already. It's generally through the place activation team as the first point of call for community groups, and support is provided through the program manager and the office of the CEO as well. But for councillors, please direct all of your inquiries that you get around this straight to the 1300 number or info at SVC, and they'll be redirected to the right person.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Thank you, Shirley. Okay, so any other comments on that? Will I put the motion? All in favour? They're carried. Okay, I will move to the breakout room and hand over to Councillor Ham.
I will start the breakout room now rather than trying to be efficient.
Just send me.
I'm going to attempt to do that.
We like you here, James.
I'm still here.
Sorry, this is hence why I was trying to get ahead of this before.
Yeah,
so.
that's okay.
Pretty slow, Buggy.
Couldn't he just leave his room?
He's gone. He's gone. Thank you, councillors, for allowing me to chair this part. So it's recommendation 2C that we endorse Adelong Enterprise for $10,000.
To be, Councillor
Do I
Ham.
have to be or not to be? What did I say? Anyway, so do I have everyone's support for that?
Need a mover and a seconder first.
So who would like to move that? Councillor Wright and Councillor Cross. All in favour? All in favour.
Unanimous?
Motion's been passed. Yes.
Thank you. I will close that room now. Bring the mayor back.
Enjoying his afternoon tea.
He's probably gone for a break.
Back, Mr Mayor. Councillor Ham has carried out the vote on that matter, and that matter has been accepted at Along Enterprises for $10,000. Thank you, Councillor Ham.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. Okay, moving on. The minutes of the Aboriginal Liaison Committee meeting. Mover. Councillor Pritchard. Seconder. Councillor Cross. Any comment, Councillor Pritchard?
Just to endorse the recommendation from that committee meeting, which is on the 16th of June. There was another meeting yesterday, which is relevant, that obviously we don't have the minutes from it, but just comment on it. That meeting in June was face-to-face, and yesterday was by Zoom. And the Zoom meeting was highly successful. It was quite extraordinary, because everyone could speak to each other, have little odd disagreements and so forth. Whereas the previous one, whereas it was face-to-face, some of the people there weren't used to meetings and didn't speak out. But the other thing is that one of the, apart from the distances involved to get people together, one of the members has moved down to the coast, and so for her to come across to the meeting, it would have been 6 hours or something like that. So they're very enthusiastic and would like to move Zoom meetings in the future. As far as, there's just one other small point, and that is that they're complaining that yesterday they were complaining that they don't have a place in Tumbarumba which they can call home. And I was wondering whether that old men's shed would be suitable for them, or whether there's something else. Maybe somebody can talk to the Aboriginal Liaison Committee, or I think Ngaro people, Garago people at Tumbarumba, and see if we can work out what their problems really are and whether they can be solved from a meeting point of view. A place they could call home. Would the old men's shed be big enough, Bruce?
Councillor.
I reckon to be plenty big enough, to be quite honest. But yeah, probably a good location. The other one is that place up near the Wildest Cottages. It's a building up there that's never been used, as far as I know.
Well,
I think the opportunity is there for them to put forward an expression of interest. So I encourage them to do that.
Can somebody at Tumbarumba talk to them?
Yep.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, will do.
Thank you.
For the Chair, I know we'll run an expression of interest process for that building, and I think we have a resolution on the books about the Walters Cottage area for the Tumbarumba Aboriginal people there. So I could dig that up and circulate that to councillors.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cross.
Yes, look, this is not directly related to the committee meeting.
How unusual. Come on. Are you sure?
But we know that 60 to 69% of the Indigenous population out at Brungle have been vaccinated. Now, I would really like to know who was responsible for vaccinating them, whether it was RivMed or another organisation. No, I'm hope that we can find out, please.
Can we take that on notice and get an answer back to you as soon as we can?
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cross, and good question. Lucky I allowed it, eh?
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
And I apologise for my dogs barking, interrupting.
I thought it was someone else's. I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. That'll take the smile off your face. Councillor Cross, moving that way. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ham. Councillor Cross.
Yes, it was a really interesting meeting, this one. the committee looked at all of the operations of council and were very happy with everything that's happening. For me, what was really important was the Telstra cybersecurity report that was brought to council, and we got a really good report card for that with 96% compliance ratings. So the audit committee was very, very happy with all of that.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Anything further? I'll put the motion. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Moving on to Disability Inclusion Access Reference Group. Mover. Councillor Cross, seconder. Councillor Isselman, thank you. Anything from there?
Yes, just to let you know that the DIAG is developing a survey to assess the community's experiences regarding access to venues and whether the disabilities and additional needs are being met within our Snowy Valleys Council. We also had the activation officer, the events activation officer, come and attend, and he discussed a platform called Humanitix, which is a ticketing platform for people with disabilities who can connect with the event prior to it happening to make sure or to find out what kind of facilities are going to be available at that event.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cross. Anything further? All in favour of that motion? It's carried unanimously. 12.3, moving on to 12.4, Glenroy Heritage Reserve Committee. Mover. Councillor Smith, seconder. Councillor Bright, Councillor Smith.
Yes, I attended this meeting on behalf of Councillor Ham, who's the regular councillor representative on that committee. Two things that I just want to mention. On the recommendations at point 3, endorse the nominations of the following committee members. I note that the treasurer is not mentioned on that report, and I'm just wondering why that is. The president and the secretary are noted there as interim president and interim secretary. The reason for that is that there just are not enough people on that committee to take up these positions. And these people have been, these committee members have been working very hard for many years on that committee, and they do an incredibly important job for that facility, which is a great credit to the Tumbarumba community and a great attraction to the Tumbarumba community. And it is really important as far as our Snowy Valleys Council tourism program is concerned. So I just want to highlight the fact that those people need extra support. They need new members for their committee to be able to take up these positions and to help steer that facility forward into the future. And I'm just recommending that if it is possible for council to in some way have a recruitment drive to gain new members for that committee, that would be a very important thing for us to do.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I will note that the treasurer is mentioned in the body of the minutes, and we're asked to receive the report minutes. So in that way, we're accepting that. Anything further? Any other councillors? I'll put the motion. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. The second 12.5 Glenroy Heritage Reserve Committee meeting, 25th of July. Councillor Smith, you're moving again? Yep. Councillor Ham, anything further to add?
No, that was on the side.
Just my thanks to Councillor Smith for filling in for me on that day, and I support all your comments, Councillor Smith. It is a tremendous asset to Snowy Valleys Council, so let's hope we can get some more people in it.
Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Timber Recreation Reserve Committee. Mover, Councillor Ham, Councillor Isselman. Councillor Ham, anything to add?
I was unable to be there on that day, but I am part of the email loop of just how pleased they were to be getting the funding for the Tuma Gincana. And just wondering whether the Director of Infrastructure knows anything about the options for commencement of the project for the outdoor area. I presume that's the veranda going along the front and the secure storage, whether he is able to tell us what's going to be happening with that.
Mr. Caution.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ham. Very limited advice apart from what's already included in here, in that we've had a look at the drawings and working through Glenn with the committee in how we can help out with the application of funding and trying to progress that. So we'll work with the group and see how we can help.
Thank you.
Because it's a they've got to go through council because they've got quite a lot of bushfire money there now, that but they've got to go through council if they're going to do these modifications.
Yeah, we'd like them to come through council. Yes, correct. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so even though that they might be funded and will want to undertake the delivery of the works, we'd still like to be involved in that process.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. That's Tuma Recreation Reserve. Riverina Regional Library Advisory Committee meeting. Councillor Cross. Councillor Risselman. Councillor Cross.
Yes, at the meeting we endorsed the management committee plan, the management plan, but the biggest issue facing the Riverina Regional Library organisation is the fact that Wagga City Council, which is the executive council for the committee, has indicated that they wish to leave the committee. So that leaves quite a bit of a financial gap for other councils. There are currently 10 member councils, but at the meeting, they all endorsed remaining within the Riverina Regional Library organisation because there are so many benefits to it that it would just need to be looked at how it's managed if Wagga City Council does withdraw, because there would need to be a new executive council appointed. It's not probably something that Snowy Valleys can do, even though we've got the most libraries within the region, given the fact that we have other commitments as well. So that will go out, be called on for expressions of interest. And one of the ways to look at how we can grow the committee is to look at other councils within the area to see if they wish to come on board as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Anything further, councillors? Thank you for that summation, Councillor Cross. Put the motion. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Councillors, that concludes the ordinary section of the council meeting. Can I have a mover and a seconder to move into confidential? And can also, before we do that, can I also ask that councillors are able to confirm if they're in a location where no one else can hear or see or view the session you're in? So everybody do that? Yep, thank you. That's good. Okay, move in a seconder to move into confidential. That's Councillor Smith and Councillor Cross, all in favour. It's unanimous, thank you. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move into confidential.
My dog is joining us. I hope you don't mind.
Like, the cat's left me.
Hmm?
The cat has left.
Oh, my cat's just Yes.
Mr.
We're still on. We're still live.